This presentation is about the Bunraku Theatre. It's a Japanese form of puppet theater that's been around since the 18th century, also referred to as doll theater. So one of the things you'll notice about Bunraku puppets is how incredibly realistic they are. And Bunraku is a highly subtle, very realistic form of puppet theater that originated in Japan and reached its peak in the 18th century. And in the form that it takes today, which was established by the 18th century, 3 puppeteers control the puppets. And the plays of Bunraku are complex enough to bring life to these sophisticated puppets for which they are written. Predecessors of Bunraku include Japanese puppet theater, which can be traced back at least to the Heian era, which is the 8th century through the 12th century Common Era. Around 1100 Common Era, Oi Tadefusa publishes a book called The Book of Puppeteer. And after this point, some kind of puppet theater was always performed by wandering entertainers in Japan. There are stories and legends in Japan, and these stories and legends were recited or chanted to the accompaniment of stringed instrument called a biwa, even before the known emergence of Japanese puppet theater from the 8th century. From 1560 on, an instrument from the Ryukyu Islands, the samisen, was introduced to this form of storytelling. This form became known as joruri because of a popular love story about a woman named Joruri who was the daughter of a wealthy merchant. In 1594 to 1614, puppet performances or doll theater were combined with joruri storytelling, and this became a very popular form. In 1648, the popularity of this form of puppet theater increased because of a company in Tokyo that was founded by Toreya Gendeyu. In 1685, Bunraku takes its initial form in Osaka when a company is founded by Takemoto Gideyu, and his style dominated the doll theater. Gideyu owed much to the plays of Chikamatsu Manzemon. Chikamatsu was considered Japan's greatest playwright by many. He began writing for Takemoto in 1686. Chikamatsu Manzemon wrote many kinds of plays for both kabuki and bunraku. He's noted mostly for 5-act history plays and 3-act plays in contemporary life. Critics particularly love the sensitive characterizations and the beautiful language of his dramas about the double suicides of lovers. Among the best-known plays he wrote are The Double Suicides at Sonozaki, The Drumming of the Waves at Harikawa, The Battle of Kaksinga, and The Love Suicide at Amijima, which is the play one of the plays you can read in this particular learning unit this week. Takeda Izumo II is an important Bunraku playwright who worked with Chikamatsu. He came after Chikamatsu as the principal writer for the Osaka Doll Theater. Among his plays are the Chushingwa, 1748, which is based on a historical event. It tells the story of 47 faithful samurai who avenged the wrongs done to their master. And this play was so popular that 100 full-length kabuki and puppet plays were based upon this play between 1748 and 1900. The evolution of Bunraku puppets is long, and the puppets of Bunraku started off more simply than the sophisticated objects they became in the 18th century. Originally, the puppet was merely a head handled by one puppeteer, and later hands and feet were added. In 1678, very complete human figures were being used. In 1730, a mechanism was added to control the puppet's eyes. In 1733, jointed and movable fingers were added. Later, puppets were fitted with removable eyebrows. The puppeteering system of Bunraku has evolved along with the types of puppets that are used. As puppets became more complex, the number of puppeteers increased. Originally, only one handler, who was hidden from view, was required to run the puppet. After 1734, each doll was operated by 3 men, all of whom were visible to the audience. One handler will manipulate the head and right arm, one handler manipulates the left arm, and one manipulates the feet. In 1736, puppets reached their current size of about 3 to 4 feet tall. The Bunraku stage is the story of the Bunraku stage is one of increasing complexity, just as the story of the puppets and the puppeteering have to do with increasing complexity in the Bunraku tradition. In 1715, there's an introduction of movable scenery. In 1727, elevator traps were introduced to raise scenery through the floor. In 1757, elevator traps were used to create different stage floor levels. Most successful playwrights of the Bunraku period in the 18th century were Takedo Izumo and Chikamatsu Hanji. Most existing stage conventions of Bunraku were established in the 18th century. In 1780, the puppet theater began to decline as it was overshadowed by kabuki. In 1789 to 1800, puppet theater has had a revival under the company founded by Umuro Bunrakuken. The term Bunraku, which is used to refer to present-day puppet theater, is actually derived from Umura Bunrakuken's name. Bunraku lost a great deal of popularity between the 19th century and the middle of the 20th century. In 1963, the Bunraku Association was founded to manage all phases of this art. In 1984, the luxurious National Bunraku Theatre was opened in Osaka, and its Bunraku troupe performed 6 to 8 months a year, divided among home theater in Osaka and a small theater in the National Theatre in Tokyo. They also tour in Japan and abroad. Bunraku theatrical conventions are complex and beautiful. The stage is about 36 feet wide by 25 feet deep. It's divided into 3 levels from front to rear. Each level is indicated by low partitions between which the handlers work. All locales are represented scenically and changed as required by the story. Many props are used in Bunraku theater. At the right side of the auditorium, just in front of the stage, there's a platform for the narrator and the samisen player. And this is equipped with a turntable which is revolved to bring the narrator and samisen player into position. And at the end of each act, a new narrator samisen team replaces the earlier one. Puppet performance begins with the appearance of the announcer. Clad in black and wearing a hood, this costume is worn by all stage assistants except the principal handlers, the musicians, and the narrator. The announcer proclaims play title and the names of the samisen player and narrator, who command greater prestige than even the puppet handlers. The samisen is a 3-stringed instrument that's related to the lute. It has a skin-covered bass. It's played with a heavy iron plectrum. It varies in sound. It can follow the rise and fall of a voice, give special emphasis, and provide punctuation to the narration and action. The narrator of the Bunraku theatrical convention tells the story. He expresses the feelings of each puppet, smiles, weeps, starts with fear or astonishment. Handlers and puppets occupy center stage. Puppets vary in size and complexity according to their importance in the play. Female figures ordinarily do not have feet. Feet are suggested by the way the kimono is handled. And minor puppets do not have movable mouths, eyes, and eyebrows. Handlers seek to become one with their puppets and to absorb themselves in the drama. Handlers undergo long and arduous training before appearing on stage. First, they learn to operate the feet, which usually takes 10 years spent mastering this. Progress then to the left arm, usually about 10 years spent mastering this. And then they peak, and the remainder of career is spent working with the head and the right arm. And the artistry of Bunraku puppets have greatly influenced the development of kabuki.